The gentle chime of the apartment door surprised me as I unpacked the final of my groceries. I hadn't anticipated anyone. Especially not her. Standing in the doorway was my new roommate, tall and impossibly graceful, her opalescent skin shimmering softly under the hallway lights. She was not human, far from it. Her kind, the Idali, had only arrived on Earth 2 decades prior, seeking refuge after a catastrophic planetary collapse. Efforts to integrate humans and Idali were still challenging, but this government-mandated roommate program aimed to foster mutual understanding. "Hello," she said softly, her voice melodic like wind chimes. "I am Z." Her name flowed from her lips like poetry. Her violet, almond-shaped eyes observed me with an intensity that sent a wave of both unease and fascination through my chest. "I'm Ran," I replied, setting down a jar of peanut butter that suddenly felt absurdly mundane in her presence. "Come in." Zella stepped inside, her movements fluid yet cautious, as if she were trying not to disturb the floor beneath her. A small duffel bag rested on her shoulder, but her posture suggested exhaustion. "Your file mentioned you came from the Northern Idali clans," I said, attempting to fill the silence as she scanned the living room. "Yes," she replied, her gaze lingering on the bookshelf. "And you are from here?" I chuckled. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." She tilted her head slightly, the faintest trace of a smile appearing on her pale lips. It was disarming how her expressions were both alien and deeply human at once. After I showed her the small guest room, Z hesitated at the door. "This SB is generous," she murmured. I frowned. "Generous? It's pretty standard for a roommate setup. You should see some of the shoe boxes in the city." Her violet eyes flickered with what I could only interpret as comfort. "It is uncommon for Idali to sleep apart from companions, even temporary ones." I froze, caught off guard by her statement. "Wait, you mean you're used to sharing rooms, beds?" She clarified simply, her tone matter of fact. "It is tradition." I blinked, unsure. If she was joking, she didn't seem like the type. "Well, that's not really how humans do things. We like our space and privacy." She nodded but said nothing more, retreating into her room with a tired sigh. The first night passed without incident, though I found myself thinking about her more than I expected. There was something unsettling about her presence, but not in a bad way. It felt more like a constant awareness, a silent pull at the edges of my mind. By the second night, I began to notice things. Z moved through the apartment with an almost ghostly silence, yet she was always aware of me. If I turned a corner, she'd already be glancing in my direction. If I dropped something, she'd pick it up before I even reached for it. On the third night, she appeared at my bedroom door. "Ran," she said softly, her voice tinged with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "Pain. Perhaps I cannot sleep." I sat up, rubbing my eyes. "Is something wrong?" She hesitated, clutching the edge of the door frame as if it were a lifeline. "The space, it is too empty. I am not meant to be alone." I blinked, still half asleep. Do you want to talk or something?" Her gaze dropped, and for the first time she looked vulnerable. "No, I need warmth." I swallowed hard. "You're saying you want to sleep here?" She nodded, her silvery hair falling over one shoulder. "It is our tradition to share for comfort." I stared at her, the request so absurdly intimate that my brain short-circuited, but there was no malice in her eyes, no hidden agenda, just raw honesty. "Okay," I said, finally scooting over, "but just for tonight." She crossed the room in a single graceful motion, sliding into bed with an ease that suggested she'd done this countless times before. Her presence was startlingly warm, her opalescent skin radiating a faint heat that seeped through the blanket. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yeah," I muttered, staring at the ceiling. "No problem." I awoke to sunlight streaming through the window and the disorienting sensation of an arm draped over my chest. It took me a moment to realize it wasn't mine. Zella was curled against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. Her breathing was slow and steady, and for a moment I didn't dare move. Her skin shimmered faintly in the morning light, and I couldn't help but notice how delicate she looked. Yet there was strength there too, a quiet resilience that made my chest ache in a way I couldn't quite explain. As if sensing my thoughts, Za stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she said softly. A morning. She didn't move, and neither did I. The moment stretched on, filled with an unspoken tension that neither of us seemed willing to break. Finally, she sat up, brushing her hair back with a graceful hand. "Thank you," she said again, her tone earnest for what I asked for. Not refusing me, I frowned. Why would I refuse you? Her gaze met mine, and for the first time, I saw something raw and unguarded in her eyes, because I am not human. The words hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already on her feet, gliding toward the door. Zella, wait, I called, but she was gone, leaving me alone with 1,000 unanswered questions. In the following days, things shifted between us. She no longer retreated to her own room. Instead, she slipped into mine each night with a quiet determination that left no room for argument out. At first, it was awkward. Her proximity was both comforting and disconcerting. Her presence, a constant reminder of how alien she truly was. But as the nights turned into weeks, something changed. I found myself looking forward to the sound of her soft footsteps in the hallway, the way her warmth seeped into the sheets beside me. She didn't talk much about her past or her people, but when she did, I listened with a fascination I couldn't explain. Then one night, everything changed. Ran, she said softly, her voice trembling. I turned to face her, surprised by the emotion in her tone. What's wrong? She hesitated, her violet eyes searching mine. I need to tell you something. Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning, and in that moment I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. This wasn't just about tradition anymore. Something deeper was happening, something neither of us fully understood, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. Zala sat across from me at the small dining table, her long, elegant fingers wrapped around a cup of tea. She hadn't spoken much since the previous night, her violet eyes distant, as though she were weighing something profound. I couldn't take the silence anymore. So this bed-sharing thing, I began awkwardly. Is it really that common in your culture? Her gaze flicked to me, unreadable yet piercing. Utrust for the al proximity is a form of trust. To sleep beside someone is to accept their presence wholly without fear or reservation. It is the foundation of our relationships, platonic, familial. She hesitated, her cheeks flushing with a faint, iridescent glow. Intimate. The way she said the word intimate sent a ripple of heat through me. I cleared my throat, trying to focus. But what about privacy? It is, doesn't everyone need their own space? Sometimes privacy, she said, rolling the unfamiliar word over her tongue, is an earth concept. For us, isolation is unnatural, painful. Even it is why I struggled that first night. I frowned, guilt threading through me. I had thought her insistence on sharing a bed was strange, borderline invasive, but hearing it now sounded so deeply rooted in who she was. I didn't realize it was that hard for you, I said quietly. She looked down at her tea, her voice soft. I did not want to burden you, Zella, I said, leaning forward. You're not a burden. Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and for a moment the space between us felt charged like the air before a storm. You are kind, she murmured, more so than I deserve. I opened my mouth to argue, but she rose from her chair before I could speak. There is something I wish to show you, she said, her tone suddenly light. If you are willing, show me, I asked, curious. A part of my culture, a tradition. It may help you understand me better. Quote. We took the bus to a park on the city's edge, a sprawling expanse of green that felt worlds away from the bustling streets. Zell led me to a quiet grove of trees, her movements purposeful yet graceful. Here, she said, stopping beneath the largest tree, its branches arched overhead like a cathedral, sunlight filtering through the leaves in dappled patterns. What are we doing here? I asked. Glancing around, she knelt on the ground, patting the grass beside her. Sit. I hesitated, then joined her, the earth cool beneath my hands. In my culture, she began, her voice low and melodic, there is a ritual we perform when we wish to form a bond with someone. It is called Tanith, the sharing of hearts. I swallowed hard. Sharing hearts. She nodded, her gaze steady. It is not as literal as it sounds. It is a moment of vulnerability where we open ourselves completely to another. No barriers, no lies. I felt a flicker of unease. That sounds intense. It is, she said simply, but it is also beautiful. Would you trust me enough to try it? I hesitated, searching her face for any hint of deception, but all I saw was sincerity. Okay, I said finally, what do I have to do? She smiled, a faint curve of her lips that made my chest tighten. Close your eyes. I did as she asked, the sounds of the park fading into the background. Now, she said softly, breathe with me. Her voice was like a tether, grounding me as I matched her slow, deliberate breaths. For a moment, it was just the two of us, the world falling away until nothing else existed. Then I felt it, a warmth blossoming in my chest, spreading outward like the first rays of dawn. It wasn't physical, it was something deeper. A pulse of emotion that wasn't entirely my own. Do you feel it, Zella? Whispered yes, I said, my voice barely audible. "Since it is me," she said simply, "my essence, my heart." I opened my eyes, startled by the intensity of her words. "You can feel what I'm feeling," she nodded, her gaze unwavering. "And you me," I swallowed hard, overwhelmed. By the sheer intimacy of it, there was no hiding here, no pretense, just raw, unfiltered emotion. "You're scared," she said softly. "I Matris," I nodded, unable to deny it. "This is a lot." Her hand reached out, resting lightly on mine. "You do not have to understand it all at once. But know this, Ran, you are not alone." Her words hit me like a wave breaking down walls I hadn't even realized were there. I think I needed to hear that, I admitted. She smiled again, her eyes shining with something I could only describe as hope. That night, as we lay in bed, the atmosphere between us felt different, not heavier, exactly, just more significant. "Ran," she said softly, her voice barely audible in the dark. "Yeah, there is something I must tell you," she began, her tone hesitant. I turned to face her, my heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" She hesitated, her violet eyes shimmering like twin galaxies. "I came here to escape not just my planet, but the expectations. My people have traditions, obligations that I could not fulfill." "What kind of obligations?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Her gaze dropped, her voice barely above a whisper. "To bond, to choose a mate." My heart pounded in my chest. "Oh, I was not ready," she continued, her words spilling out like a confession. "I wanted more time, but..." Now she looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "I do not know if I can run from it." Forever. The weight of her words settled over me, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. "Zala," I said finally, my voice steady, "you don't have to run anymore. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Her eyes softened, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met, Ran." I reached out, brushing the tear away with my thumb. "And you're nothing like I expected. But maybe that's a good thing." She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that made my chest ache. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit before. This wasn't just about tradition or obligation anymore. It was about her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. The nights became our sanctuary as the world outside moved on, oblivious to the delicate connection forming between us. Zella and I built something fragile yet undeniable during the quiet hours after the sun had set. Sharing a bed no longer felt strange. It had become a natural rhythm, a language unspoken, but this night was different. Z shifted beside me, her breathing uneven. I could feel her warmth, her steady pulse against the silence of the room. She hadn't said much during dinner, and now, even in the dark, I could sense the tension radiating from her. "Zella," I whispered, breaking the stillness. "Are you okay?" Her voice, when it came, was faint. "Barely, hun, it's nothing." "That's a lie," I said softly, turning onto my side to face her. "You've been quiet all day. What's going on?" She hesitated, the faint shimmer of her opalescent skin catching the moonlight. "It is not something you need to worry about." "That's not how this works," I said gently. "You can't just shut me out." She turned her head, her violet eyes meeting mine. There was something raw in her gaze, a vulnerability that made my chest tighten. "I am in pain," she admitted finally, her voice trembling. I sat up immediately. "Pain? What kind of pain? Are you sick now?" she said quickly, her hand reaching out to touch my arm. "Not in the way you mean." I frowned, trying to piece together her meaning. "Then what is it?" She looked away, her cheeks glowing faintly with embarrassment. "Is it as difficult to explain?" "Try me," I said softly, my voice steady. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "For the Adali connection is not just a choice, it is a need. Proximity eases the mind, but it is not always enough. There is a deeper bond that forms when two beings truly share themselves with one another. Without it, we begin to wither emotionally and physically." Her words hit me like a freight train. "Wait, are you saying you're withering?" She nodded, her gaze dropping. "It has been building for some time. I thought I could endure it, but it is becoming harder to ignore." A surge of protectiveness rose in me, fierce and unrelenting. "Zella, why didn't you tell me sooner? If you're suffering, I did not want to pressure you." She interrupted, her voice firm despite the tremor in it. "I did not want you to feel obligated to what I asked." My heart pounding. "To bond with me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, the words hung between us heavy and undeniable. I stared at her, my mind racing, bonding. She wasn't just talking about sharing a bed or comforting proximity. This was something deeper, more intimate. Zella, I said carefully, what does bonding mean for your people? She looked at me, her violet eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. It is everything. To bond is to share not just space, but essence, to open one's heart entirely without barriers. It is not something we take lightly, and you want that with me? I asked, my voice barely audible. Her gaze held mine steady and unflinching. Yes, the weight of her admission settled over me like a tidal wave. Part of me wanted to run, to put up walls, and protect myself from the enormity of what she was asking, but another part, a quieter, deeper part, felt something else. It wasn't fear, it was longing. I didn't sleep much that night. Zella lay beside me, her breathing slow, and even, but my mind was anything but calm. Her words echoed in my head, intertwining with memories of her presence, the way she moved through the apartment with quiet grace, the way her voice could soothe or challenge, changed me in equal measure. The truth was, I'd been drawn to her from the start. I just hadn't let myself admit it. By morning, I'd made my decision. Zilla, I said, finding her in the living room. She was sitting cross-legged on the couch, her silvery hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked up at me, her expression cautious. Yes, I've been thinking about what you said, I began, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. About bonding. Her posture stiffened slightly, but she said nothing. I want to understand, I continued. I want to know what it means for you, for us. Her eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through her guarded expression. You do not have to. I want to. I interrupted, taking a step closer. This isn't just about you. I feel it too, Zella. This connection between us it's real, and I don't want to ignore it anymore. Quote. Her breath caught her violet eyes searching mine. Are you certain? I nodded. I've never been more certain of anything. She rose from the couch, her movements fluid and deliberate. Then there is something I must show you, she said softly, but it is not without risk. I frowned. Risk? What? Show you what kind of risk? She hesitated, her hands clasping together. If the bond is not true, if there is doubt or fear, it can harm us both. The Dolly bonds require trust, absolute trust. I swallowed hard. And if it is true, her lips curved into a faint, wistful smile, then it will be unlike anything you have ever known. Quote. Zilla led me to her room, the space bathed in soft, ethereal light. From the crystal-like orb she had placed on the shelves, the air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. Sit, she instructed, gesturing to the floor. I obeyed, my heart pounding in my chest. As she knelt before me, close your eyes, she said softly. I did, as she asked, the familiar sensation of her presence washing over me now. She said, her voice of soothing melody, let go of everything you are holding on to, fear, doubt, let it all fall away. It wasn't easy, but I tried. I focused on her voice, on the warmth radiating from her. Slowly, the tension in my body began to ease, and then it happened. A surge of energy unlike anything I'd ever felt enveloped me. It was warm and radiant, a tidal wave of emotion that was both hers and mine. I could feel her hopes, her fears, her longing, all laid bare before me. Ran, she whispered, her voice trembling. Do you feel it? Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I feel you, she exhaled, shakily, her hands reaching out to rest lightly on mine. This is the beginning, she said softly, the beginning of us. In that moment I knew there was no turning back now. When I opened my eyes, I was met with Zala's gaze, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the soft light of her room. Her hands were still on mine, warm and steady, as if tethering me to her in this newfound connection. What happens now? I asked, my voice quiet, almost reverent. She smiled, a small, tender curve of her lips that made my chest tighten. Now we learn each other truly. What does that mean? I pressed, feeling the echo of her emotions faintly mingling with my own. For the Idali, bonding is not just an act, she explained. It is a journey, a process of aligning two souls so they may move together in harmony. Quote. It takes time, effort, vulnerability. Sounds intense, I said, trying to keep my voice light. This made as it is, she admitted, her tone unflinching. But it is also the most beautiful thing we can experience. It is what makes us whole. I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. So where do we start? With honesty, she said simply. The days that followed were unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and I spent hours talking, peeling back the layers of ourselves in a way that felt raw but liberating. She told me about her home world, about the sprawling crystalline cities and the sky that shimmered with a spectrum of colors, unlike anything on Earth. She also shared the pressure she'd faced, how her family had expected her to bond with someone of high, standing to carry on their lineage in the way. Tradition demanded I couldn't do it. She confessed one evening as we sat on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below. I didn't want a bond out of duty. I wanted it to mean something. Her words struck a chord in me. I get that, I said, my gaze distant. My parents always had this idea of what my life should look like: college, a stable job, a family, but I never fit into their mold. She tilted her head, studying me with gentle curiosity. And how did that make you feel? Lost, I admitted, like I wasn't enough. Quote, her hand brushed mine. The touch light but grounding. You are enough, ran more than enough. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that made my throat tight. As the bond deepened, I began to notice subtle changes in myself. My emotions felt sharper, more vivid, as if Zilla's presence had unlocked something dormant within me. But it wasn't just me. Zilla, too, seemed different. The pain she'd carried, the quiet, unseen struggle, seemed to ease, replaced by a quiet strength. Her laughter came more easily, her smiles brighter and more frequent. One night, as we lay side by side in bed, I couldn't help but ask, do you feel it too, this change? She turned to me, her expression soft. Yes, the bond is a living thing. It grows and evolves just as we do, and with each passing day it strengthens. It's strange, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I'd feel scared, vulnerable, but instead I feel whole. She finished. Her G is steady. The word fits perfectly, but not everything was as simple as the connection between us. As the bond grew stronger, I began to notice the way others looked at us, curious sometimes. Wary humanity had grown accustomed to alien visitors over the years, but the sight of Nkodali sharing such an obvious closeness with a human still drew attention. One afternoon, while Zala and I were walking through the park, a group of teenagers stopped to stare. Hey, one of them called out, his tone half joking but laced with a hint of malice. Is she your girlfriend or your pet? I froze, the words hitting me like a slap. Z's hand tightened around mine, her posture stiffening. Let's keep walking, she murmured, her voice calm but firm. I hesitated, anger bubbling up inside me. But her grip on my hand was steady, a silent plea to let it go. As we walked away, I couldn't stop the flood of frustration. Why do people have to be like that? It is not their fault, she said softly. Not their fault, I said incredulously. They were being jerks. Zilla, she stopped, turning to face me. Humans fear what they do not understand, Harry. It is no different among my people. Ignorance breeds cruelty. Her words cooled my anger, but they didn't erase it. Still, I muttered, it's not right. No, she agreed, her voice gentle, but we cannot let their ignorance define us. Her calm strength in the face of such hostility only made me admire her more. That night, as we lay in bed, I found myself staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the encounter. Ran, Zilla said softly, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. Yeah, she hesitated, her hand brushing mine beneath the covers. Do you regret this? Her question hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned to face her, my voice firm. No, never. Her violet eyes searched mine, as if looking for the truth in my words. Even if it is difficult, I reached out, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. Nothing worth having is easy, Zella, and you're worth everything. Her breath hitched, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. You are remarkable, Ran, she whispered. So are you, said my voice soft. For a moment, we simply looked at each other, the silence filled with unspoken emotion. Then slowly she leaned closer, her forehead resting gently against mine. In that quiet, intimate moment, I felt the bond between us solidify, weaving us together in a way that was both profound and unbreakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together. The morning after our quiet moment of closeness, the world seemed sharper, brighter, as though some unseen veil had been lifted. Every glance Za gave me carried a weight that hadn't been there before, as if she could see into the very core of who I was. In truth, I felt I could see her just as clearly. The bond had changed us both, deepening not only our connection, but our understanding of each other. But with this new depth came an unspoken tension. What is it? I asked one afternoon, finding Zella standing by the window, her silhouette framed by the soft sunlight. She didn't look at me immediately, her gaze distant. The council, she said finally. What about them? they will soon request an valuation of my time, she explained, turning to face me. Part of the agreement for my presence on Earth includes regular reports on my progress. I frowned, stepping closer. Progress? What kind of progress are they? Looking for her lips pressed into a thin line, her hands clasping in front of her. They will want to know if the bond has succeeded. My stomach tightened. Succeeded. How she hesitated, her violet eyes searching mine. If it is strong, wrong. If it is true, if it is worth allowing me to stay. The implication hit me like a blow. Wait, are you saying they could make you leave? Yes, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. If they deem the bond insufficient, they will recall me to Eta. I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in the thought of her leaving, of this bond being severed, was like a physical ache in my chest. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Her gaze softened, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You cannot control their decision. No, I said, stepping closer, but I can make sure they see the truth. What we have, it's real, Zella, and no one can take that from us. She exhaled shakily, her hands reaching out to grasp mine. I hope you are right. In the weeks leading up to the council's evaluation, Zella and I worked to strengthen our bond further. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about ensuring that what we had was unshakable, no matter what outside forces tried to interfere. One night, as we lay in bed, Zella turned to me, her expression thoughtful. There is something I wish to show you, she said. Okay, I said, intrigued. What is it? It is a memory, she explained. A part of the Irid bond allows us to share pieces of ourselves, moments that have shaped who we are. I blinked, surprised. You can do that? She nodded, her gaze steady. Would you like to see? Yes, I said without hesitation. She placed her hands on either side of my face, her touch warm and steady. Close your eyes, she instructed. I obeyed, and a moment later I felt a rush of sensation, light, sound, and emotion all swirling together in a vivid tapestry. I was standing in a vast crystalline meadow, the air shimmering with iridescent light. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of shifting colors, and in the distance, a city of gleaming spires rose against the horizon. This is Idala, Zella's voice said, though I couldn't see her. My home. The scene shifted, and suddenly, I was in a grand hall, the walls adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to glow faintly. A group of Idali stood before me, their expressions stern and unyielding. Zellara, one of them said, their tone heavy with disapproval. You must understand the importance of tradition. Bonding is not a choice, it is a duty. I understand, Zala's voice replied, though it trembled with emotion. But I cannot bond with someone I do not love. The memory dissolved, replaced by a quieter moment. Zella sat alone on a balcony, her face turned to the shimmering sky. There was a sadness in her expression, a longing that pierced me to the core. I left Idala because I could not conform to their expectations. Zilla's voice said softly, I wanted something more. The memory faded, and I opened my eyes to find her watching me. Her gaze filled with vulnerability. Now you understand, she said, her voice barely audible. I do, I said, my heart aching for her, and I promise, Salera, I'll never let you feel that kind of loneliness again. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and she leaned forward, her forehead resting against mine. In that moment, I felt the bond between us pulse with a quiet, unshakable strength. When the day of the council's evaluation arrived, I was ready. Za had set up a video call with the Adali representatives, and as their holographic images appeared in our living room, I felt a surge of determination. Zellara, one of them said, their tone formal, you have been on Earth for several months now. We are here to assess the success of your mission. She inclined her head. I understand. And who is this? Another representative asked, their gaze turning to me. This is Zella said, her voice steady. He is my bonded partner. The representatives exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Human bonding is unconventional, one of them said carefully. Work. What makes you believe this bond is sufficient? Zilla hesitated, and I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. Because it's real, I said firmly. The representatives turned their attention to me, their gazes sharp. You speak with conviction, one of them said, but words are not enough. Hailed, can you prove the strength of your bond? I glanced at Zella, who gave me a small encouraging nod. Closing my eyes, I focused on the bond, letting it guide me. The slicks, a surge of warmth and emotion filled me. And when I opened my eyes, I saw the faint glow of energy surrounding us, an unmistakable sign of the connection we shared. The representatives' expressions shifted, their skepticism melting into something resembling awe. It seems one of them said slowly that the bond is indeed genuine, quote. Zillara exhaled a shaky breath, her hand slipping into mine. You have our approval to remain on Earth, the representative continued. May your bond continue to grow and flourish. As their holographic images disappeared, I turned to Za, a grin breaking across my face. We did it, I said, pulling her into a tight embrace. No, no, Ran, she laughed softly, her arms wrapping around me. We did it, quote. The day after the council's approval felt like stepping into a new chapter of our lives, with the looming thread of Zella's recall gone. The bond between us deepened in ways I hadn't thought possible. The connection was no longer just a thread between two individuals. It was a symphony of shared emotions, a living entity that enriched every moment we spent together. But even as we settled into this new reality, life had its ways of testing us. One quiet evening, while we were cooking dinner together, well, Zilla was cooking, and I was doing my best not to ruin her delicate, eerie recipe. The news on the television caught our attention. A report flashed across the screen about tensions rising between a faction of humans and certain alien delegations. Words like xenophobia and conflict scrolled along the bottom of the screen, and I felt Zala's posture stiffen beside me. I thought things were getting better, I muttered, turning the volume up slightly. There, she said, her voice quiet, but progress is never linear, quote. I turned to her, taking in the tension in her shoulders, the slight downturn of her lips. Hey, I said softly, stepping closer, we're not going to let this affect us. Whatever happens, we face it together. She turned to me, her violet eyes filled with both gratitude and quiet resolve. Together, she echoed that night. As we lay side by side, I couldn't shake the nagging sense that our relationship might always face challenges, from misunderstanding, from fear, from the stubbornness of those who refused to see the beauty of what humanity and the idolatry could build together. But then I glanced over at Zella, her serene expression illuminated by the faint glow of the moonlight. She looked peaceful, her silvery hair fanned out across the pillow, her breathing steady and soft. In that moment, I realized something. It didn't matter what obstacles lay ahead came. What mattered was the quiet, undeniable truth that we belonged to each other. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled sleepily. Couldn't sleep, she murmured, just thinking. I said about what I hesitated, then said how lucky I am, quote. Her smile widened as she reached out, her hand resting lightly on my chest. You have a kind heart, Ran, that is why the bond chose you. Her words stirred something deep within me, a warmth that spread through my chest. I don't think it's just the bond, I said, it's you, Za, you're extraordinary. Her cheeks flushed faintly, a beautiful iridescent hue, and she ducked her head slightly. You always say such things, and yet I never tire of hearing them. Good, I said with a grin, because I don't plan on stopping anytime soon, quote. To go over the weeks that followed, our lives found a rhythm. We learned to navigate the challenges of being a human idyllic couple, finding support in unexpected places. Some of our neighbors, once hesitant, grew curious and eventually warm, inviting us to dinners and asking questions about Zala's culture. Zella, in turn, became a quiet ambassador for her people, showing humanity that Kadali traditions weren't so different from their own. Her grace and kindness won over even the skeptics, and I found myself constantly in awe of her ability to bridge divides with nothing more than her presence. Through it all, our bond grew stronger. One evening, as the city buzzed with the distant hum of life outside, Zila surprised me by suggesting we go for a walk. No, I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, she said with a mysterious smile, taking my hand. Trust me. I let her lead me through the quiet streets, the city lights casting a soft glow over everything. We ended up at the park where we'd had that tense encounter with the teenagers weeks ago. But tonight the air was calm. The park, bathed in the soft light of the moon, guided me to a secluded spot beneath a sprawling tree, its branches adorned with tiny glowing orbs, lanterns that I hadn't noticed before. Did you do this? I asked, my voice filled with wonder. She nodded, her violet eyes shining. I wanted to create something special for us, a place that feels like home. It's beautiful, I said, my gaze sweeping over the scene, but when I looked back at her, I realized she wasn't. Done, she reached into the folds of her silken tunic and pulled out a small, crystalline object. It shimmered in the lighted surface, etched with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse. Faintly, "What's this?" I asked, taking it carefully from her hands. "It is an irid bonding token," she explained, "a symbol of our connection. Traditionally, it is given during a formal ceremony." She trailed off, her gaze dropping for a moment before meeting mine again. "But I wanted you to have it now." I stared at the token, its weight solid and comforting in my hand now. Then I looked at her, my chest tightening with a surge of emotion. "Zar," I said, my voice thick, "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I promise I'm never letting go." Her smile was radiant, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Nor are you." As we stood beneath the glowing tree, the bond between us pulsing warmly in my chest, I realized that this was only the beginning. The road ahead might be uncertain, but with Zella by my side, I knew we could face anything. And as I slipped the bonding token into my pocket, I felt a quiet, unshakable certainty settle over me. We weren't just two people from different worlds. We were something more. We were home. The end.